Welcome to Wellbeing Wizards. I'm G.
And I'm T for Todd.
And we bring you real life stories about hope, transformation and healing. In today's session, we're going to set the scene about who we are, why we're here and what to expect. Our podcast is about holistic well-being, how to create it and more importantly, how to maintain it. We're both intuitive health and well-being coaches with over 61 years of life experience between us.
Wow, that's a lot of years on the planet, G.
It is. And our skill is simple. We help choreograph your peace of mind and happiness. Todd, let's tell our listeners what inspired us to start this podcast series.
That's a great question, G. Over the past 18 months, we've provided holistic wellbeing solutions for stress, anxiety, sleeplessness, fatigue, and much more to those affected through lockdown policies enacted around the world. But it has also provided an opportunity for us, an opportunity to establish a holistic wellbeing service to manage the effects of those lockdown policies. We use non-clinical mind-body interventions. So what are the results? Over the past 9 months, we have collated information from over 500 clients, and almost 60% of them were otherwise fit and healthy before lockdown policies were implemented.
And that was shocking to discover. But the great news is, Todd, that we've seen a 95% success rate through the non-clinical interventions that we've implemented, and more importantly, through the intuitive coaching process. So we know our method works. And it's important also that we've recognized that everyone's situation and story is unique. However, we also identified a common theme that is run through all of our clients. And what we're going to do is share these inspiring stories with our audience so that we can make an impact to more lives. So over the months, some of the examples that we've worked with are managing grief and loss,
improving resilience, anxiety and stress,
reframing unhealthy habits such as diet and movement,
and finding purpose and dealing with the new normal as many of us return to work, or we start calling working from home the new normal.
So Todd, some of our listeners may be thinking, so what? What's so different about us?
3 things really, G. Real people, real stories, and real life events. Let's be clear here. Our clients are the experts. They have the innate wisdom to heal, given the tools to do so. Now, our podcasts are designed to send a message by sharing inspiring stories that may resonate with our listeners and create a ripple effect of transforming fear to hope, uncertainty to possibility, and illness to wellness.
Thanks, Todd. That's awesome. And to give an idea of the format of our successful coaching process to our listeners, it consists of 6 sessions. They can be weekly, fortnightly, or monthly. But the most important thing is the client takes full accountability, followed by 3 seasonal reviews. Now, I'm sure our audience is itching to know what qualifies us.
That's a great question, G. Tell me a little bit more about yourself.
Well, Todd, I'll try and summarise that for you and the audience. I like to see myself as bridging the worlds between science and spirituality, or the healing modalities, and provide a unique holistic experience for my clients. Professionally, I have a master's in neuroscience and 3 decades of experience in the healthcare industry. I started my professional career as a research associate at one of the largest teaching hospitals in England, Bart's Hospital. And that was in diabetes and arthritis, and then moved on to bone health and vitamin D. I really consider myself fortunate over the years to have worked with, and a lot of my teaching has come from some of the finest medical experts in the healthcare industry. But I've actually spent most of my career in life sciences and, surprisingly, the pharmaceutical industry. Okay, so I know everything about drug design, drug research, bringing it to market, so on and so forth. Most of my work has been addressing population health and driving access to medicine and services. However, I left the industry in 2018 after winning 3 accolades, national accolades in market access. It was actually a turning point in my life following a personal tragedy, which really brought me to standstill to review what this was all about. I suppose in science we learn to manipulate matter that interferes with the natural order of things. So we, introduce an anomaly and think, okay, how will we adapt, or how will we survive if we do X, Y, and Z? But in naturopathy, in the natural world, we are taught to observe the nature of things, and within that, we adapt to the natural forces around us. So, Mother Nature provides those prescriptions for healing. And I suppose, if I'm honest, that's how I've lived my life. Underneath all the labels and the academia, is our life experience. And I know that you speak of this yourself, that, we're not just our collection of academics, there's more to us. And really my interest in the natural sciences and naturopathy and healing in particular, and then researching the different perspectives of the healing arts started very, very early in life at home, where back in the 70s, yoga wasn't an exercise on a mat. It was actually a lifestyle that we lived. My granddad was a very disciplined advocate of this art and science form, and so was our community. So, I was raised in a very traditional household, and grew up exposed to the elements of nature, how to abide by the natural laws. So, my grandparents arrived in this country back in the 60s. They were farmers. My granddad was a carpenter, hence, he came as a skilled worker. But we used to grow our own vegetables and our spices and our herbs. And so our apothecary, so to speak, was the culinary, the kitchen. And that's where I learned all of these healing recipes that I now share with my patients and my clients. I still remember all the aromas that used to fill the air at home, and the sensuality of all of that. And this is so much a part of healing, not only with our mind and body and our spirit, but, at a much deeper level of our innate wisdom. Music was our source of mantra. So, we practiced a form of meditation called Shabad, which is the sound, the yoga of sound. And we know that music is one of the greatest healing forces that we can be exposed to. So, within all of these spheres of my life, we've really managed to balance, which is, I think it boils down to, our mental health, our physical health, our emotional well-being, and our spiritual well-being. So those are the 4 pillars of our being, and all of them need to be serviced. So I've been practicing as a naturopath with this collective wisdom now for 20 years. I am also a certified nutritionist, a functional yoga teacher specialized in functional bodywork, traditional Chinese medicine. I've practiced as a shiatsu therapist in critical care, and many other modalities. which has led me to establish and pioneer healthy lifestyle clinics in the NHS, something that I've been incredibly passionate about for the last 15 or 16 years. But I think what I'm trying to get as the most important thing we both bring to the table, Todd, is our collective life experience and our wisdom, because you can't put a price on that and you can't learn that in a school. And so that's where we have that innate capability of stepping inside some of the shoes of, you know, our patients or our collective clients, and we can really resonate from where they are and the kind of like the life stories they're bringing to help them navigate kind of like their distresses or their kind of like mind-body imbalances to a more evolved state of awareness and consciousness. So I'm really looking forward to, I'm really excited about, you know, sharing these stories that we've collected over the past 18 months between us with our audience, and see how we can make a difference through this platform. So Todd, you have a very different background to me. You spent over 2 decades in the finance industry and technology. So I'm sure the audience is really looking forward to hear who you are and what you bring to our Wellbeing Wizardry as the yin and yang duo.
Thanks, G. Yes, my background's a little bit different. I've spent over 20 plus years in the financial / technology space as a project manager. And those type of roles can get very stressful at times. Technology space, you know, working long hours, long days. I can count on one hand where I didn't leave the office before 6:30 p.m. And I was in before 7 a.m. and I was running environments, you know, around the world. Wow. So I could get calls in the middle of the night and all that sort of stuff. So it was messing with my sleep cycle. So I had to find ways of, you know, adapting to my sleep cycle, but also the stress that comes along with that, and managing lots of people in an organisation becomes very stressful over a period of time. But thankfully, you know, as a young age, you know, you might recognise my Australian accent. I've always been an active person. So I've always leveraged that as part of dealing with things. So dealing with stress. And, you know, as soon as I could walk, I was running around. So, you know, the typical thing in Australia, if anybody's watching from Australia, how you going? Footy in the winter time, cricket in the summertime. And that was a cycle, if you like. And in between that, I was going surfing, I was playing tennis, running, did a lot of cycling. So always keeping active, and I think that served me in good stead. When I came over to the UK, as I said, I've been here around for 25 years. I continued that type of practice moving forward. But I won't lie to you and say I haven't burnt the candle at both ends in some respect. You know, I smoked from the age of 13 to the age of about 27, 28. So I know what it's like to actually be smoking a cigarette at your desk. And that brought up other challenges for me, because I recognised at some point that, you know, that wasn't for me, it wasn't a healthy way to be. I just didn't feel myself. Even though I was doing all these movement practices, I liked a beer at the time, so, you know, I needed a cigarette to support myself. But over time, I recognised that that wasn't in my best interest. And then I gradually, you know, weaned myself off the cigarettes, and then I was in as I said, the financial and technology space, and the stress of that. But I think, you know, the most important thing was I recognised I had to find the different types of practices support, as you said before, your mental, physical, emotional and spiritual. So effectively my movement practice was martial arts from a young age. Surfing I still continue today, cycling I still continue to do today, but also developed a martial arts practice, a high level practitioner now in several different forms, and also my mindfulness practice.
Yeah.
Now that's, I'm an accredited yoga teacher. I'm also an accredited Tai Chi teacher. And the specific form of Tai Chi that I teach, there's only about, I'd say roughly 35, around about that number at this point in time, of teachers around the world. And there's about 25 in the UK, about 8 or 9 in Ireland. So that's something I came into around about 2010, and then I completed my teacher certification over a number of years to get to that point. And then as I was in this project management space, I was developing all these practices alongside, and I recognised that there was a shift. There had to be a shift for me, because burning the candle at both ends, from working long hours, working long days, sometimes 6-7 days a week, and lots of travelling involved, international travel involved in that. Sounds glamorous, but when you're going to Australia to an European tour, Asia Pac tour, you're basically 1 day in each location. So I remember one tour, I went to Hong Kong for 1 day, and then I flew to Australia, spent 2 days in Australia, and then I flew to Singapore, spent 1 day in Singapore, and then back to the UK. So dealing with jet lag, sleeplessness, and all these sort of things. That's where my background is, if you like. So very different type of background, but I've developed coping strategies over a period of time, and I think those put me in good stead when I'm working with patients and clients on an individual basis now, because I can resonate with their story, and some of them can resonate with my story, especially from working long hours and shift work and all that sort of stuff. So then we can meet each other on a good place. And I always say that, as much as I'm providing information, I'm also learning as much as I can from my clients as well, because you're my best teachers, if you like. I can provide guidance, but as part of the coaching service, I'm providing an evocative coaching method, right? So the goal always is to bring out your best level of who you actually are. So what can you do with what you have from where you are? And that's a little bit about me. So I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more detail over the coming podcast episodes. We'll go in a little bit more detail into the practices. I hope that gives you an idea of who I am. And as G says, you can always Google me to find out some more information. Now, G, there are going to be some other guests, I believe, on the podcast series.
There are.
There are?
And there's nothing we can do about these guests.
Now, we do have 2 furry friends, otherwise known as cats, Zen and Bella. So if you're watching this on YouTube, then you may see them pop in and out of the frame every now and then. They may even just come and sit on the couch with us. We can't control them because they're cats, but we love them all the same.
Absolutely. And they are quite vocal.
They are quite vocal. So if you're listening, on iTunes or Spotify, come over to YouTube at some point in time, and then you'll see the cats hanging out with us, because you'll hear us talking about it, obviously.
Absolutely. Wisdom. So, it's a wrap, I think, now.
Just about, G.
You've been listening to G&T on Wellbeing Wizards. If this conversation has inspired you or touched a chord, perhaps you've got a story to share for some of our podcast series, we'd love to hear from you. Please get in touch. We welcome your feedback, because it helps us shape future shows. Todd, tell our listeners how they can do that.
Well, G, there's a couple of ways you can do that. You can reach out to us at wellbeingwizards.com. You can connect via the socials, so obviously Instagram and Facebook. If you're watching this on YouTube, which is really the best place, you can place comments below the video here and all the videos that we do, and that's probably the best place, because we read all the comments and we reply as much as we can.
Yep.
Nothing further to do, I think, G, except thank all the listeners. Have an awesome day wherever you are in the world. My name is Todd.
And I'm G. Thank you for listening.